I have an ache that lives deep in my womblands. And sometimes I just cry from my soul about it. You knew. You fucking knew!
The next time you call me a sex offender, make sure you put registered in front of it. You whack motherfucker.
My way or the highway.
Chelsea is absolutely using this moment to defame an Indigenous man. These are her white woman tears.
So initially, when this polyamorous controversy came into my feed, I quite genuinely could not get myself together to actually do a reaction to it at the time. But fortunately for me, a very kind TikToker has compiled the entire story of Womblands, the polyamorous TikTok saga that caused quite a bit of controversy.
Wait, were you actually keeping up with the Womblands drama at the time? Because it really was so serious. Some of us laughed back then, but if only we knew. If only we fucking knew! So this all went down on the FYP in 2022, and there were two main players at the center of the story. The first is Chelsea, a singer, performer, and comedian who posted a lot of what 2016 red-pilled YouTube would call SJW content. They posted about racism, misogyny, all forms of oppression really, which made them a great friendship fit for Lance, aka Modern Warrior. He posted similar content too. He really was advocating a lot for Indigenous people, and you probably remember him from his notorious Stitch tagline.
Hey, colonizer.
So imagine the TikTok SJW community's surprise when Chelsea posted a video saying that they had been romantically involved with Lance and it had gone south. So what had happened was they had been online friends for about a year, and for the last 6 months of that, they had gotten very flirty and romantic. And Lance supported them through a very tough time in their life.
Lance became my friend very soon after I lost the baby, and I'd been having panic attacks for the first time in my life, and he supported me beautifully through those things.
Remember that detail for later. I also have to shout out Whitney Rose on YouTube for uploading every single video made by every single person involved. Thank you for your service, Whitney Rose. So as they're sort of online dating, Lance tells Chelsea that he recently listened to a podcast about polyamory, and now he's interested in exploring that. And Chelsea told him, I have no interest in any of that. I want to be monogamous. Okay, so then they fly out to Denver to meet him in person, and obviously they hook up, right? We all listened to that Morgan Stewart interview. If you're getting flued out, you're putting out. And on top of that, it was unprotected. Chelsea goes home, and the next day, Lance posts this TikTok with a random woman. So now they're like, what the fuck? Who is that? And when they ask Lance about it, he says, I was gonna tell you, after he put it on TikTok apparently. So now Chelsea feels duped because they would have never bought the ticket, yes, they bought their own ticket, and gone out there had they known about this other person. And now things are even dicier because the sex was unprotected. It's like, who else are you hooking up with, right? Chelsea wraps it up, no pun intended, by saying that they don't want anyone coming after Lance. Please do not cancel him. He can leave his misogynistic ways behind and be better. But I did just tell you what a shitty person he is for your own personal knowledge.
One of the most stereotypical ways that you can cheat within polyamory is to have unprotected sex without communicating that you had unprotected sex. Now, that's not exactly what happened here, but I thought that I would bring that up because, well, that is a thing that a lot of people don't understand, that like just because somebody is polyamorous does not mean that they cannot cheat.
Okay, so that's all fine and well, except for the fact that after this, another TikToker named Amanda makes a video saying that she was also in an online situationship with Lance. She met up with him and also did it raw because she was under the impression that she was the only one. And although she had a smaller following than Chelsea's million plus, Chelsea was duetting everything she said, so her messages were getting amplified. And what I find particularly weird is that Chelsea and Amanda look very similar. Like if you describe them both on paper, it would be the same. So Lance definitely has a type. It's woke brunettes with pixie cuts. Now this cheating scandal, if I may, is coming at a bad time because while they're both talking their shit, Lance is also getting doxxed and threatened and harassed by his online haters. They're out here spreading rumors that he's messaging underage girls as well. Basically, this is a fucking mess. Chelsea and Amanda both say in their videos that the rumors are not true. He is not talking to underage girls. He's just a liar who has flown out multiple people to hook up, unprotected. And a huge component of both Amanda and Chelsea's stories is that they feel like they weren't able to give informed consent because had they known that he wasn't monogamous, they wouldn't have agreed to the unprotected sex, or maybe the sex at all. The word Chelsea used specifically was violated. Lance violated my body.
I don't know if that legally makes it assault, and I don't want to say that it does, because that's an accusation I'm not prepared to level against someone. But Lance J. Sosi, you knew full well how invested in you I was.
Plus, after Chelsea and Amanda connected, they realized just how fucked up Lance's treatment of them had been. For example, Amanda had an ovarian cyst rupture, and Lance told Chelsea that he caused that. He was like, yeah, I'm so Lance that I ruptured another woman's womblands a long time ago before we met, so don't worry, you're the only one. I'm Ill. Chelsea made a few more videos about the situation, just giving more details. They said that they bought lingerie for the trip and that they sent Lance multiple gift cards to buy stuff for their time together. So he knew that this was a romantic, monogamous visit and yet was talking to these other people and telling them that Chelsea was okay with the polyamory. Needless to say, after all this information comes out, everyone turns on Lance. They're calling him out left and right for the underage girl rumors, as well as the Amanda-Chelsea two-timing.
It is pretty common for people who are otherwise invested in decolonized perspectives to also question monogamy, right? Monogamy, as it has existed within this country, really exists to reinforce patriarchy more than anything. And the real issue of this is really the ownership of women, which is such a central part of that. And central to monogamy within this country is this sort of idea of owning women, right? Like within patriarchy, one of the worst things that could ever happen is that you're a man who has a woman who is with another man, right? So there's a lot to be said about what polyamory offers to people who are invested in a decolonized perspective. A lot of times you'll see that these people will hold a very different standard for white women and everyone else, right? So it doesn't shock me that like the two main people within this whole conversation are edgy people who are designated female at birth who have the same look. I kind of hate that there are so many dudes who do this thing where they're like, I'm polyamorous, and then they like go and do some fuck shit. And then when they get caught, they say, but I told you I was poly. And I think this is why so many people end up having such a negative opinion of polyamory, because you've got people like this who their whole thing is kind of like, well, but I told you, and like, if you were really woke, you'd get it. And that's kind of the other thing too, is like, I kind of got the sense that there were a lot of people who kind of saw his, hate colonizer type energy, and they were like, kind of like projected a lot more onto that than they probably should have. A lot of people who do this sort of shit, they aren't honest. It's interesting to me how many stories I hear of men who they thrive in the ambiguity of it all. They don't want to necessarily be as clear about it as they possibly could. It just comes off as very manipulative. It comes off as very, very, very much like you don't really want for them to agree.
Enter a new character, Denise, also known online as Aunt Karen. She has a huge following, over 1 million people deep, and I know her as a kind of calling people out sort of account, kind of like Lance's. Her most popular videos are exposing racist people, defending Justin Baldoni with the Blake Lively stuff, and calling out Simone Biles' annoying-ass husband. So kind of topical, commentative sort of stuff. Anyway, she makes an anti-Lance video.
And the next time you call me a sex offender, make sure you put registered in front of it. You whack mother.
My way, or the highway, my way.
And Lance responds. He actually responds to Aunt Karen saying that the rumors about him liking underage girls aren't true. But he also responds to Chelsea. They get a public apology.
To Chelsea, I'm very sorry that our friendship has come to this. I'm very sorry for not being the effective communicator that I wanted to be. And most importantly, I'm extremely sorry for the pain that I've caused you.
This apology actually makes everything worse for a couple of reasons. Number one, he doesn't acknowledge that he did the exact same thing to someone else at the exact same time. So Amanda feels slighted because she wasn't part of the apology. Secondly, he really minimizes his involvement with Chelsea here. He talks about their friendship and how he wasn't an effective communicator, which is true, but they wanted him to go farther than that. They wanted him to apologize for the unprotected sex? I don't know.
I may be pregnant with your child, and you are apologizing for your communication. I have an ache that lives deep in my womblands. And sometimes I just cry from my soul about it. And I sent you so many messages opening up to you about that. You knew. You fucking knew!
And there goes the infamous quote. The ache was deep in her womb, Lance, not Womblands. She was talking directly to Lance with that one. This is when the situation blew up to a whole new level and became a massive meme. The Daily Mail was talking about it, for God's sake, and they were claiming that Lance lost 700,000 followers from this. I mean, it was a lot. At the same time, Chelsea's followers are going through Lance's profile, finding any woman and digitally jumping her. A creator named Witchy Twitchy got a bunch of shit just because Lance reposted one of her videos. It really was that serious. Another person who got called out this way was Julita. Amanda. She and Lance had a similar start as Chelsea and Amanda did, but with her, he was a lot more forthcoming about his intentions. She said they had a very straightforward and thorough conversation about monogamy and decided not to see each other because neither one of them wanted to be exclusive. This was interesting because she was the only woman of color in this situation and she was being treated completely differently. So now people were like, is he colonizing right now? Like, what the hell? Anyway, as the Womblands saga got bigger and bigger, the internet moved away from jumping Lance and started turning on Chelsea instead. Aunt Karen's followers were coming for her because they were like, why are you falling for these white woman tears and turning on this indigenous man? And she was like, you know what? You have a point. Lance's followers dug up a video where he referenced having a vasectomy, so now the accidental pregnancy of it all that Chelsea and Amanda had mentioned was being called into question. On top of that, other creators were bringing up the fact that Chelsea's baby that she lost and had all this trauma surrounding was actually an elective abortion. To be fair, abortions are traumatic, even if the person decided to get one. It's not as easy as like going into Planned Parenthood, popping a pill, and then celebrating with an Oreo blizzard, you know? Some of y'all haven't listened to Brick by Ben Folds, and it shows. But it was the language that Chelsea had used, I lost my baby, that made people believe that they were trying to misrepresent their abortion as a miscarriage. It was like miscarriage stolen valor, if you will. So Chelsea's catching heat, and they're starting to show the effects of said heat on their socials. They're talking about having major mental health issues and ideations, just really putting it all out there, as per usual. But unfortunately, as the tides continue to turn against Chelsea, they also lost one of their only allies, their fellow cheatie, Amanda.
Chelsea is absolutely using this moment to defame an indigenous man. These are her white woman tears. She has been calling me nonstop, yelling at me, pressuring me, telling me what to say, telling me what to do, telling me what to post, telling me what not to post, trying to control me and how I tell the truth about my experience with Lance.
Plus, a mutual of Chelsea's had screen recorded their friends-only posts and then shared those with the public. And you could just see them essentially begging their mutuals for help and support. It really was not looking good for them. Honestly, sharing someone's close friend's story or their friends-only TikToks, I think it should be punishable by jail time. Chelsea wound up in the hospital for 10 days, which they had to prove afterwards because no one was buying their white woman tears anymore. And then Chelsea and Lance both said goodbye to TikTok. They stepped away. Amanda's TikTok actually got banned for a minute too. And just as quickly as Womblands had taken over the internet, it was over. Today, all of this story's players are back online and all is well. Modern Warrior, I guess, had another big cancellation that he had to come back from when he said that white passing mixed people were just white. I still feel like that was rage bait. I don't know, but it worked. People were enraged. And now it has been 4 years, but it feels like a lifetime since Womblands. This is a collective mishearing that will go down in internet history forever.
Okay, so that was a lot. That was a lot. I think one of the things that's so frustrating about being polyamorous is that a lot of you guys only really get representation of polyamory that is like this, right? Some person, usually a dude, who is trying to get over on other people. Usually women. And honestly, if I were to tell you who ruins polyamory more than anyone, it is men. Men, a lot of times, like, they take to polyamory and then they end up doing shit like this. You know, they end up cheating and, you know, mistreating people, even when there's a relationship style that theoretically would give them the ability to explore and do whatever the fuck they wanted. There's a lot of debate about whether or not a polyamorous person can date a monogamous person. I'm going to be very honest with you. I have been openly polyamorous for a very long time. Have I met people who have a scenario where one person is polyamorous, the other person is monogamous, and that works for them? The answer to that question, frankly, comes with time, right? There are people that at some point in time, I would have said to you, yeah, it's working. It's totally possible and it's very viable. Then you fast forward a few years and it turns out a lot of what you saw was not what was. And it really was a situation where you had these two people. These two people really did like each other, but one person maybe did indeed get bored and then decided that they would kind of, as a stopgap between the relationship they're in and the relationship they're heading towards, they decided that they would try out polyamory. And then sometimes the process goes that, you know, they open up the relationship, and then once the person whose idea it was to open the relationship manages to find a person that, you know, can take the place of the new partner, then the transition begins, right? I get so frustrated when people are like, polyamory is just like cheating, because actually it's not. It's actually not like cheating at all. It's more like being completely honest about how you feel and transparently communicating with the people that you're dating everything that you're doing. That's what it actually is more like. It's more like you just being very honest about how you feel and what you're doing. It's frustrating because, you know, as a person who is very happy and very comfortable within my polyamory, sometimes it's like a game of proving to other people that, like, you're not like every polyamorous person that they've heard of, every like bad, weird, cringy polyamorous person that you've ever heard of. But frankly, a lot of times when I see stories like this, the thing I want to get across is that, yeah, there are polyamorous people who are like this. A lot of them are, unfortunately. You know, for me, polyamory is about love. It's about being in love with multiple people. And obviously, polyamorous people can sleep around. I may not really have casual sex, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with being a polyamorous person who does. I want to make that very, very clear. But I do think that when you know that that's how you feel, it's a good idea to stick to your guns when it comes to that. It really, really is. Because now you've got a situation where here's a person who is monogamous and they feel betrayed because you didn't change your mind. If you're in a situation where you're in the pursuit of a monogamous relationship and the person who you're speaking to says, hey, I have curiosities about polyamory. How do you feel about that? And you know that your answer to that is no. You know for a fact that polyamory is not something that you're willing to pursue. Don't pursue it. Don't even entertain it. If I'm going from what this story is saying, that's kind of what happened. That they had this idea that, you know, this relationship would go a certain way, and the way that it would go is in a way that would eventually lead to monogamy. And even though that's what they said they weren't interested in, that was kind of the expectation. And I do get frustrated sometimes with monogamous people who do this, who think, I'm going to be so amazing, I'm going to be so great, that this polyamorous person is no longer going to be polyamorous. Because first of all, you have to recognize that when someone's polyamorous, that usually means that they're in love with more than one person. And if you're entering into that relationship with the idea that you're going to be the person who wins, you're going to be the person who pushes someone out of the whole equation, you are probably not going to win. Because at the end of the day, most poly people aren't going to be like, wow, you're just so amazing that I'm no longer going to do poly for you. Some people will. But from my observation, a lot of times the people who do that resent it. And so I think if you meet a person who says that they're polyamorous and you're not polyamorous, you should not pursue that person. And if you're a polyamorous person and you know that you're polyamorous and you know the person who you're interested in is not, you should not pursue that person. But, you know, sometimes when I say that, I always get like negative reactions to it. And I just realize that like so many people are in this situation where they're chasing after relationships that they're not meant to be in. And I do find that to be kind of sad. And I really wish sometimes that people would respect themselves, frankly, enough to like save their own time, save their own energy, save their own emotions. A lot of times people will date people who are monogamous when they're polyamorous because that's what their dating pool provides, right? They're in a dating pool that is predominantly full of people who are not polyamorous. And so naturally they go for people who are not polyamorous. Now, personally for me, I think a huge part of why I'm in the nice, happy little stage of polysaturation I'm in right now is because I'm in a situation where everyone that I dated from the time I started dating them was polyamorous. You know, there was no last minute change or years go by and suddenly we're like, hey, you know, I wanted to open up the relationship. We all started polyamorously. And it works very, very well for us. It works incredibly well for us. Like, I think a big reason why I have the success I do in polyamory is also because I live in Los Angeles, right? Like within a lot of the circles that I'm in, polyamory is definitely not too terribly uncommon. I mean, I'm a goth who spends a lot of time in BDSM spaces, right? And I know a lot of nerdy people. Like, the diagram is like a circle. It's literally like a circle. It's the same group of people. And I love it, you know, but a lot of people don't live in situations like that. So they oftentimes feel like their only choice is to be in a monogamous relationship. And frankly, a lot of times those relationships don't last. I mean, surprise, surprise. A lot of times when you start a relationship saying one thing, it doesn't end up going the right way if it turns a different way. You know, that seems like common sense, but, you know, common sense ain't common. All right. So, you know, I kind of started this line art, and I'm getting there again, but I don't know. I'm getting that sense that maybe I gotta like back away from it for a bit. So I'm gonna go to the club. I'm gonna like toss on a really thin layer of makeup and go to the club. It is 11 o'clock at night. If I get ready in like 15 minutes, I can do it. I mean, I really could just go what I'm wearing right now. But I don't know. Maybe I won't. Sometimes I do enjoy just popping over to the goth club and like basically nothing and like going home. It's a vibe. Anywho, I think I've said all I want to say. Were you guys there for all of this when it happened? I would love to hear more of the lore that I obviously did not get in this video. I would love to hear from monogamous people who have been propositioned by polyamorous people, what your response to that was when they came to you and asked you about polyamory. I remember when my ex and I actually made a video where we were like, I would never be polyamorous. And here I am with 3 boyfriends. You know, it's funny because I'm not saying that people's opinions about this can't change. I think for me, when I started my polyamory journey, I was like, look, I know I'm polyamorous. I know that I don't want monogamy, and I know that I don't want to date people who want that from me. So I am going to solely focus on dating polyamorous people. And frankly, that really did work for me. And I think it makes a lot more sense when people do that, when they really honor that, you know, some people are polyamorous, some people are monogamous. Not everyone's gonna like the same shit. And, you know, the world will still turn. I would also love to hear from polyamorous people about whether or not you entertain dating monogamous folks. That has been a conversation we've had on here before, but you know, it's been a bit, so let's talk about it again. On that note, I'll talk to you guys later. I want you to stay hot and introspective, and I want you to always remember and to never forget that you are beautiful and you are loved. Bye.